And good day, everybody. Welcome, episode 126 of the Talking Friars podcast. Ben Fadden, your host here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, joining the show. Again, the Padres, as I'm recording this, as we're going live right now here, 11 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Pacific time, the Padres have yet to make a move. They have yet to bring in Nick Martinez and looks like complete that physical. They have yet to sign Seiya Suzuki, or they have yet to sign Conforto or Bryant or Castellanos. They have done nothing. So it's another podcast about what has happened at Padres spring training camp thus far. But it's an entertaining one because a lot has happened. A lot has happened in camp, and we're going to get to all of that. And I guess we can start. I mean, there's a lot of things to discuss here. There's a lot of different areas to discuss. Hosmer criticizing the front office. Fernando Tatis Jr. violating his contract, as I found out today, and some Padres fans that found out today. Padres potentially going after Freddie Freeman. That's a report that came out today about the Padres being interested and entering the bidding for Freddie Freeman. So all of these things are percolating in Padres Nation. Bob Melvin, Peter Seidler spoke to the media earlier today. So I have the audio of that. And so we will have that played, and I'll give my reaction to that as well. So just letting people come in here. Thank you again for watching and listening. This episode is sponsored by Gaglione Bros, famous cheesesteaks and subs, gaglionebros.com. When the Padres open up April 14th against the Atlanta Braves, Matt Olson in the Atlanta Braves, not Freddie Freeman, but Matt Olson in the Atlanta Braves. You can get yourself cheesesteak, garlic fries, upper deck, down the third baseline by the Bally Sports San Diego booth. So, and they have two locations, Sports Arena, Point Loma. So that is the sponsor of this episode. Joe Gaglione and those guys over there, they're great. So go hit them up, gaglionebros.com. So first, starting off here, before we get to all the main topics that I was talking about, let's first start off with some news that I was fortunate enough to break earlier today. And that's it. It's not big news, but it was in regards to Manny Machado. I tweeted out today, I believe like 7:33 a.m. Pacific time, that a source close to Manny that I got in touch with said that Manny was expected to report to spring training today. And I put that out there. Source had knowledge of the situation. And what do you know? 24 minutes later, Kevin Acee, who is there in Arizona, reported that Machado was in the building at spring training. So I was happy that turned out to be right. And that was fun to definitely report today. And I think that might not be big news to some casual fans, but I think it is because, look, Manny wasn't at spring training on Sunday when it seems like that was the report day. He wasn't there yesterday, which was the first actual day of workouts. He and Hosmer weren't. So that was something that people were curious about. What's up with Manny? Because of all the injuries with Tatis, obviously with the wrist injury, which we went over in depth last night. And then, with Cronenworth with the adductor injury, you didn't want Manny to go down. And so I think some fans were definitely worried about that, but he's fine, and glad to report that he's fine. And I don't have knowledge from the source that I got the information from. I don't have knowledge about exactly why he didn't, happen to go into camp in Peoria on time like everyone else. But it was a quick turnaround. Maybe he had plans about something and he had to cancel those, or he had to do those plans. And it is Manny Machado. Like, he's an ultimate professional, so I'm not worried about him. Same thing with Hosmer too. Like, I know Hosmer has not done well at all in a Padres uniform. That's well chronicled, but he's also a professional as well. He's gone through spring training, so I'm not worried about them missing a couple days of, casual batting practice and casual ground balls and running down the first baseline. I'm not worried about that, but just wanted to get that Manny news out there. Chat, welcome in. Thank you again for hopping on here on this live stream. And we'll get into all these topics, but just kind of letting people funnel in here. Turbo, AJ lost his phone. Yeah, look, no moves have been made. He's working the phones. There are reports that he's still obviously aggressively shopping Myers and Hosmer. So maybe he's doing that before trying to get to free agents. I think a big part of this, why you're not seeing moves, is they're waiting on Seiya Suzuki. They're waiting on him. He met with the Cubs yesterday, which there's an update again on Suzuki, which I'll get to later. He's probably going to be meeting with other teams. There were 6 to 7 suitors, including the Padres. So he has to pretty much wait that out. And it seems like the Padres are like the favorites based on all the posts and everything. Suzuki was at Petco Park in the facilities at Petco Park, taking batting practice and all that. Darvish and his family met with Suzuki. So it feels like they're the clubhouse leader in that. But I think part of the reason why you're not seeing these moves, at least outfield-wise, is they're waiting on Seiya Suzuki. Because for bang for your buck in terms of like the cheapest guy, it's Suzuki. Castellanos and Bryant seem like they're going to go $25 million at least a year, while Suzuki feels like $12 to $15 million, and it might end up being a shorter deal as well. So I think they're just waiting that out, and that's also why Bryant and Castellanos aren't signed yet, because, Boris obviously has Bryant. I forget who Castellanos' agent is, but they're waiting because they know that other teams are trying to get Suzuki. They'd rather have Suzuki, at least price-wise, over them. So there's not as much interest. The Rockies are interested in Chris Bryant, but I think there's going to be more suitors. You'll see more suitors in them when Suzuki signs. Like, that's when the ball will get rolling, kind of like the Matt Olson deal. It feels like when that happened with the Braves, the ball's more rolling now on Freddie Freeman and clarifying what teams are really interested in all that. So AJ has his phone. Don't worry. I think it's a lot of waiting for some guys to make a decision, and then the ball will really get rolling. What's up, Adam? Yep, another day of no moves for AJ. Bob Nightingale just sucks with news. The man should not be verified. Yeah, you're talking about probably the Freddie Freeman thing today. Well, yesterday, with the Suzuki thing, he totally botched that, with the Yahoo Japan report talking about how Suzuki had signed a 5-year, $70 million deal, and he quote tweeted it and said, "Hey, today's not a totally lost day for the Padres." No, Suzuki then ended up meeting with the Cubs later that night. So, yeah, he's been wrong a lot of things. Bauer to the Mets last offseason, which feels like years ago, but yeah, he was wrong on that. Let's see. According to Japanese news, Padres still the favorites for Suzuki. Yeah. I don't look, unless it comes from Jeff Passan and stuff and guys like that, I'm not going to really read into a whole lot of that. But it's interesting to see what Japan thinks of it. But, until Passan tweets something, it's like, I don't really want to buy into it. All right. Let's get into this, chat. Let's get into the main topics for today. Padres, spring training in Peoria. The whole team is there. Tatis is not healthy, but the whole team is there. And let's start off here with Eric Hosmer's comments. Eric Hosmer reported to camp this morning, and he talked openly to the media. He was professional about it. I know people really dragged him, a couple hours ago when the Kevin Acee article came out with a tweet or with a quote that we'll get into. But in terms of this morning, he talked to the media inside the clubhouse before the workouts. And regarding trade rumors, he said, quote, "We're all used to the rumors. Get used to the talk. We just have to be ready to go," end quote. The problem with that first quote, "We're all used to the rumors," well, the problem is, no, not everyone is used to the rumors. And when you came here, Eric, You were supposed to be a big part in why the Padres were going to win. You're holding the team back in ways with your contract, with your defense. So you saying that, we're all used to it. Well, you might be used to it now because you've dealt with it for a year plus because of how you've played. But the fact of the matter is you should not be used to it because you shouldn't even be in these trade talks. If we go back to 2018 when you signed here, you were supposed to be one of those big front men in the Padres' success, and you're holding the team back now. He also said, quote, and this one is kind of one that pissed me off, quote, "The only thing I have to prove is to my teammates," end quote. Well, look, that's false. It's not false that he has to prove to his teammates. That's true as well because, look, the Padres aren't dumb. Padres players aren't dumb. Trent Grisham, Will Myers. I mean, Myers doesn't have a whole lot of room to talk, but Tatis, Manny, guys like that, they know that Hosmer's not living up to his contract. They know that he needs to be playing better for the Padres to go where they want to go if Hosmer's going to be on the team and if Hosmer's going to be getting consistent at-bats. They know. They're not stupid. And so they know that, yes, Hosmer needs to play better. And so Hosmer, yeah, he does need to prove himself to his teammates and prove to them that he still has it and he still deserves to, be in the lineup every day over Jake Cronenworth at first and Jurickson Profar even at second if they go with Kim at short and Abrams not on the roster. So, yeah, he does need to prove it to his teammates. But come on, Eric. You got to be better than that. Come on. You're telling me you don't have anything to prove to the front office or the fans, the very fans that pay your freaking salary, that $144 million that the Padres gave you that contract in 2018, the fans are helping pay that. And they expected you, all those fans that bought Hosmer jerseys. My cousin Jacob, he had a white Hosmer jersey, before they switched to the brown and gold. All those fans that bought those jerseys and were excited when that news first came out in 2018, that, this was like the big first step in the change of this direction of the franchise. And they were excited in 2019 when you and Manny and Kinsler helped bring Tatis into the opening day roster. The fans were the ones that were excited and thought that you were going to be a big part, at least initially. I know that faded, that hope, that optimism faded quickly, but those fans were the ones that were supporting you and they still are helping pay your contract. Bob Nightingale, breaking news. Anthony Rizzo, 2-year contract to the Yankees. All right, breaking news there. So Bob Nightingale reports that. I don't know. Let's see if there's any other tweets here. Pending a physical. John Heyman back to the Yankees. Looks like a 2-year deal with the Yankees for $30 to $35 million. One reporter hearing 2 years, $32 million with an opt-out after 1 year. So Rizzo goes back to the Yankees. That eliminates the Yankees in the Freddie Freeman sweepstakes. So that is interesting. That means that Freddie Freeman is either going to go to the Dodgers, who seem like the front runner. You got the Rays. You got the Blue Jays. The Padres have shown interest, which we'll definitely get into. But Anthony Rizzo going to the New York Yankees, going back there. Looks like maybe then it expends Luke Voit as a possible trade opportunity for some other teams. And so that's something to look at. But yeah, Anthony Rizzo to the Yankees, breaking news. That's a big former All-Star who's now off the books. So that's a big move. But back to Eric Hosmer, another first baseman, saying that the only thing I have to prove is to my teammates when the fans are the ones that had all this optimism and they were the ones that were helping pay this contract and still are. And the big thing is you don't have anything to prove to the front office? Eric, you have 10-5 rights coming after this season, meaning that you can veto any trade. And that means that the front office knows that you're going to veto every trade that they propose to you because you know that you want to be on a contender. despite how bad you're playing. You want to be on a World Series contender, and I don't blame him. But because he has 10-5 rights and he's not playing well, the Padres are going to want to be able to get rid of him this year and have urgency, and that's why they're so aggressively trying to shop him, because they want to get rid of him this year so he has no chance to veto trades other than the 10 teams that he can supposedly veto right now. So there's 19 teams that are open that he can't veto. So they're strongly, aggressively trying to trade him, and rightfully so. And if they don't get a deal, you're telling me, Eric, that you don't have to prove yourself to the front office and prove to them, hey, look, you made the right decision by not trading me. I can still help. I'm willing to make adjustments with Michael Brodar, the new hitting coach. I'm willing to be quieter in the batter's box and not with this whole big load and all of that. I'm willing to make changes. I'm willing to work my butt off on defense and feel like I care a little bit more on defense. Because to be quite honest, when I'm watching Eric, it seems like he's been lazy a little bit at first base last year at least. So you're telling me, Eric, that you have nothing to prove to the front office? The very people that gave you $144 million and who were pretty much bidding against themselves, that's what they were doing. They were pretty much bidding against themselves and saying, here, because that's what Boras did. That whole saying that the Red Sox were interested, that was a bunch of BS. The Red Sox ended up giving Mitch Moreland, a 2-year contract? Nothing near what Hosmer got. They weren't interested. They weren't really interested. They were just driving up the price. His own team, the Kansas City Royals, weren't even really interested. Once they saw that number at $144 million, they were like, holy no, heck no, we're not giving that guy $144 million. But so to get back to Hosmer in the front office and not even saying that you have to prove anything to the front office, they were the ones that gave you $144 million. They were the ones that want to trade you before you get your 10-5 rights and can reject a trade, because they know that odds are you're not going to reject a trade because you want to be on a contender, which are the San Diego Padres, for years to come. And you still have 4 more years, including this year, $59 million left. So you're telling us, Eric, that, nah, I don't need to prove anything to the front office to prove to them, prove to us, the fans, that I can be, Eric, that you can be some contributing factor and higher than a 1 WAR or 0 WAR, according to Fangraphs last year. You can have a higher impact than that. Come on. That's just not a correct statement. Yes, you have something to prove. You do have something to prove to the front office, to the fans. The fans are rightfully bashing you because you're just not playing well enough. And you can say, well, Ben, you never played in the big leagues. You're just sitting here as a fan. Well, yeah, I am sitting here as a fan. I'm sitting here as a passionate fan, a diehard fan, someone who keeps score during games and watches games, all of the games, and someone that is dedicated than anyone that I'm around to the Padres. Any family members will attest to that. I'm someone that has season tickets with my family and is the one that sits there for 40 games a year and sees Hosmer ground out to second base, and sees Hosmer make errors. And watching, I remember I was at my uncle's wedding the first year that Hosmer, I think, was in San Diego at Houston, watching the game, and he drops a pop-up that Alex Bregman hit, drops a pop-up that goes over his head, an easy pop-up that I could have caught, and he just drops it. You can't, these fans, we've went through a lot of struggle watching Eric Hosmer, watching you, Eric, not live up to expectations. So to say that you don't have anything to prove to us and prove to the front office when you could very well not be a Padre because they know that you're not going to leave if they don't get a trade done for you at the end of this season, and I just think it's a wrong take. It's just a wrong take by Eric. So that statement really didn't make sense for me. I think proving to the fans, getting back to that point, use this as motivation. All the bashing and saying that, fans on Twitter about, I want to blast Eric Hosmer to Mars or blast him to the sun. It's like their top priority of the offseason of this post-lockout. And I understand fans' frustration. Why can't you use that as motivation, Eric? Say, guess what? Yeah, F the fans right now. I'm going to prove them wrong. No, but to say, not even mention the fans, not even mention the front office who control your fate pretty much. I know that they'd have to give up Abrams or Hassel in a trade most likely if they want a lot of flexibility and taking a lot of that Hosmer contract. But to say it just doesn't make sense to say that I have nothing to prove to anyone but my teammates. Like, it just doesn't that did not go over well with me. Another comment that he made later in the day, I'm not quite sure if it was later in the day or if it was that same morning and Kevin Acee had like a one-on-one with Hosmer, which could have been a very real possibility because he has had quotes with Hosmer, and people have accused him of Acee really defending Hosmer and going out of his way to defend Hosmer and all of that, and being buddy-buddy with him. But Acee came on my show, this very show, a couple weeks ago, and I gave him the opportunity to defend himself on that stuff. And he told me that his sources and all those people on Twitter that think Hosmer's his source, Hosmer doesn't really talk to Acee unless it's on the record. He doesn't do that. He's very professional. He just goes about his business. He's professional. He talks to everyone at once, so Hosmer, I don't know when these comments were made. I want to be clear on that. But this was today. It came out in the San Diego Union Tribune, Kevin Acee, earlier today. And I'm going to share my screen and show this quote that Eric Hosmer said that makes him look even worse, makes him look pretty much like a douche. Here is the quote, okay? From Acee to Acee, quote, "It's different wherever you go," said Hosmer, who spent 7 seasons with the Kansas City Royals before signing with the Padres before the 2018 season. So before this quote right here, he's talking about his situation at the deadline last year, how the Padres did not approach him and warn him that he was going to be in trade talks. Quote, "If my situation was in Kansas City, it would have been handled a little differently. But I'm not in Kansas City. I'm in San Diego. That's how they operate here. I'm not holding a grudge because no one came up to me and told me what's going on. I learned that's just part of the business." End quote. All right, well, Eric, I have a lot of problems with this. I'm sure a lot of Padre fans have a lot of problems with this quote. One, I get it. You love Kansas City. You're a legend there. You won them a World Series and all that, and you're not in Kansas City. You're in San Diego. Yes, you are correct about that, Mr. Hosmer. But to disrespect the front office when they were the ones that gave you $144 million doesn't make sense. And saying that your situation would have been handled differently in Kansas City, yeah. I mean, did it take you this long to do your homework, Eric? You play really well on a team, they're going to treat you differently, and they're going to treat you with more respect. You play badly, and you're not considered a big reason why the team is winning, yeah. I don't know if you deserve A.J. Preller coming up to you and saying, "Hey, we're involving you in trade discussions. We want to trade you before the deadline, just so you know." Like, does he really deserve that the way that he's played? And to be quite honest, I haven't seen anyone bring up this example, so I'm going to do it right now. This is just fairness, to be quite honest. Actually, he's being treated better. According to reports, he's being treated better than what other former Padres have been treated in terms of trade talks with A.J. Preller. Ty France is a prime example. Before he was traded 2020, 2 weeks before that deadline, A.J. Preller talked to Ty France. And this was according to Ken Rosenthal last year in a piece he wrote. Ken Rosenthal said that Preller talked to Ty France and said to him, to his face, that France was going to be a big part in what the Padres were building in the next few years, 5-6 years. Something to that effect. And what do you know? 2 weeks later, Ty France gets traded for Dan Altavilla, Austin Nola, Austin Adams, I think one other guy, and that trade has not worked out well. I'd love to have Ty France. He'd be inserted as the first baseman, or at least the DH, on opening day, April 7th, in Arizona at Chase Field. and Hosmer would be probably on the bench. Now, that's one situation of one guy literally being lied to, young player saying, you're going to be an important part of what we're building, and then 2 weeks later, no, actually, I changed my mind, we're going to trade you now. This hasn't happened with Hosmer. They're just not talking with him. Why does Hosmer deserve different treatment when he's not providing enough impact to the team anywhere near Manny's level? Why does he deserve different treatment than a first or second year player who's contributing the same, who's having a 1 WAR or a 0 WAR, and a replacement minor leaguer is having that could have those same stats as him? Why does he think he should have the special treatment? This is the front office that gave you, again, I'll repeat it, that gave you $144 million. And you want to criticize them and say, I'm not in Kansas City, I'm in San Diego. That's how they operate here. They don't operate, essentially saying they don't operate with respect. They're disrespectful. They owed me a conversation before the trade deadline. And by the way, what does that do? What does having a conversation before the trade deadline with Eric Hosmer, if you're AJ Preller, what does that do? What happens if you don't get a trade done and you're telling him that we're really trying to shop you here, we're probably going to move on, and then it doesn't happen? Wouldn't that be worse when Hosmer walks and interacts with Preller than just Preller not talking to him and saying anything about it and alerting him that he's going to involve him in trade talks? Look, AJ Preller is a madman. I have so much respect for him. On his phone all of the time, works his butt off, okay? We've seen all the pictures. A reporter posted a picture of him on a backfield today in his bucket hat, shorts, and a shirt on the phone, talking on the phone with someone. He works his butt off. And because he works his butt off, you'd assume that he has so many trades and players involved in these hypothetical trades all of the time. He's probably talking 20 different trades or free agent signings a day right now. One, because he hasn't made moves, but that's another thing. But in terms of just deals, the whole roster except Manny and Tatis and maybe Jake and Musgrove maybe, they're probably being talked about in trades in some fashion, whether it's him bringing them up to another team or if it's another team bringing it up to him. So if AJ were to walk around the clubhouse and had to tell every single player, yeah, we're involving you in trade talks right now, it would take him 2 hours to walk around the clubhouse, because I'm pretty sure he involves a lot of players, and he's just so open-minded, out of the box thinking, that he's thinking about a lot of different things, a lot of different ways to create financial flexibility. Because I doubt it. I'll tell you this right now. I doubt it that Eric Hosmer and Will Myers are the only ones that are the players that AJ is trying to create financial flexibility with by trading them. I'm sure he's looked at Drew Pomeranz, and we just don't know about it. There's different ways, there's different players that have these contracts that they're not living up to, that maybe you don't have to give up a CJ Abrams in the deal because they're not as bad as Eric Hosmer, or they're a pitcher who might be able to bounce back. And so my point is, I just don't think that Eric deserves or needs AJ to come over to him and say, we're going to involve you in these trade talks, because there's no guarantee that he's going to be traded either. So to just bash the front office that gave you the contract that no one else was even close to being willing to give you doesn't make sense. And you can glorify Kansas City all you want, and yeah, they might have more respect for you, but that's because you were a better player then. You're not living up to your contract. You're not playing well enough here. And then saying, I'm not holding a grudge. Okay, whenever someone, this is like a life lesson, to be quite honest. I tweeted this right here. If you say, I'm not holding a grudge, that probably means you're holding a grudge. Because it's not like someone asked him, it's not like AC asked him, are you holding a grudge against the Padres? He literally just said it in the middle of this, quote, ripping the Padres front office. I'm not in Kansas City anymore. That's how they operate. I'm not holding a grudge, though. Well, I'm sorry, you can't convince me that you're not holding a grudge. So there's been reports that, he really didn't like it more than what he was showing. in the clubhouse with teammates and all that, privately. I saw a report somewhere. Sorry for not crediting it. I forgot where I saw that. But these comments, it's just like, Peter Seidler has to see this and say, why do we want this guy on the roster anymore? Just bashing the front office like this and saying that they're disrespectful. What? I think I'm a part of the media, but I'm not there. I don't have a press pass into Petco Park. But in defense of the media, this is the same guy that's saying that the Padres are disrespectful to him. This is the same guy that was disrespectful to the media right after the trade deadline last year, and told a reporter, I think it was Jeff Sanders who asked the question about trade talks and all that, and he replied to the reporter and said, look, I expect you to be better than that. Like being disrespectful to the reporter that's just doing his job and asking a question. So it's just ironic that he's saying that the Padres front office is being disrespectful and stuff, like essentially saying that. It's just like, dude, how about you just focus on being a better player? And again, use this motivation, that the front office is trying to trade you and all that. Use that as motivation and say, I'm going to prove you wrong. Use the motivation of the fans bashing you and use that and say, look, Ben, I am going to bash some home runs. You bash me, I'm actually going to go bash some home runs right now. And maybe you can start being a little bit more on my good side. But this comment just didn't make any sense. It's just like, come on, dude. Can you just be a little smarter? Be a little smarter. Just a little bit. So that was the Eric Hosmer quote there. I know I probably had a lot to say there on that. What else we got here? First, before we get to the next topics, I'll go through these comments here while I went on that tirade. Eric said, I've been out of the loop for a day or two on Padres media, and the news, this stream is perfect. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I'm trying to go live every night, it seems like. I probably won't be able to go live tomorrow night, maybe tomorrow midday if anyone wants to join, if there's anything that comes up, because I do work tomorrow night. I'm in New York, so I do work for an NBA team, so I'll be out tomorrow night and Friday. But yeah, I love this. I hope you guys love this, and I love interacting with the fans. I love doing these live streams. Let's see here. Hosmer said Kansas City felt like 100 times in a sentence. Jesus, just send him back. And the thing is, I think Kansas City still wants him. There's some Pittsburgh Pirates fans that are like, we'll take on Eric Hosmer. It's like, you're obviously not watching games. You're not paying attention. And your team sucks right now, the Pirates, so I get maybe you don't watch every game. But, like, what are we doing, dude? What are these Pirates fans thinking? Yeah, we'll take Hosmer. Yeah, go ahead, take him, please. Take him. And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to bash Eric in terms of, like, my personal interactions with him. I've had one, and I got an autograph. He was good. It was before a Sunday game, after a fielding practice he had, I think 2019 or something, came over, signed my autograph card, good, nothing bad to say. Personal interaction, the one personal interaction I've had. But these quotes, I think, are unnecessary. Treating the media when they're just trying to do their job, like he did last year before the trade deadline, was unnecessary. So those are pretty much my thoughts here. Brian, Hosmer will not change his swing to lift the ball. He's an air machine, and Myers is an unmotivated SOB. I disagree with Myers. There's a difference between Myers and Eric Hosmer. Myers is upfront. He's willing to talk about and be open about these trade discussions. And, just say, look, he said this yesterday, I think, to the media, saying, look, I just want to play out. I intend to play out my contract here. I like it in San Diego here. I want to be here in San Diego. I want to win here. And he was saying trade talks are going to happen. I've been involved with them. But guess what? I'm in San Diego, and he's going to try hard to win here as long as he's here. That's just not the same vibe. Hosmer said he's going to try earlier today. I want to be respectful to that, and I think that he's going to. But to me, when you watch Hosmer's press conference and Myers, to me, there's just a difference between the two. And I'm much more willing to have Myers and give Myers another chance here and give Myers that right field spot and hope that he has a bounce back year, because it feels like he really wants to be here. It feels like he really wants to win here and he's invested here. You know? It just doesn't feel the same with Hosmer. Let's see here. Back to the Anthony Rizzo thing. A fit in New York, cheaper than Freeman. They need a left-handed bat. Yeah. I think Rizzo's a good fit. It worked for them last year. I know they didn't win the wild card game. Garrett Cole kind of choked there with the Red Sox, but Stanton's played really well there. I'm glad to see him play well. Rizzo, he played well. I mean, remember, right out of the gate of that Yankees deal, he was amazing. Like home runs left and right. Fans pay his contract. Hosmer should just shut up and play his best ball. I don't want to say that he should just shut up, but I'm just saying that he should be smarter with his comments. And I don't think he should have been criticizing the front office that gave him a contract that no one else was willing to give him, and criticize the front office for not going up to him and saying that they're going to involve him in trade talks, when I don't think he's deserved it. Like, if it was in Kansas City, yeah, because he was playing well there. He played well there. He was an all-star there. But when you have a negative defensive war here, the Padres have wasted $75.5 million out of the $80 million in the base salary over the first 4 years of the contract. I just don't think you have the room to talk in that way, you know? Another comment here, Adam, Haas was kind of like the Seager deal, overpaying a guy that was going to play for a losing team. I disagree with that last part. You know, they overpaid him definitely, but he was going to play for a losing team in 2018 and 2019, but they made the playoffs in 2020. I know it was just a shortened season. And then on paper, going into last season, they were like the second favorite to win the National League pennant behind the Dodgers, I think. Fangraphs had him the best rotation in baseball, so he was not signed long-term, at least, to be on a losing team. Another comment here from Barry. No big names would sign with us back then, though, so we overpaid for a low-end star. You're replying to Adam's comment there. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. Adam says, Hosmer is like Blake Griffin when he was in Detroit. Overpaid on a losing team. Again, the losing team thing, 2018, 2019, I guess you can make the case for that. But, I mean, Detroit was just a dumpster fire with Blake Griffin, though. Erie Fan Geek weighs in here. I know it's highly unlikely, but if he moves Hosmer and gets Freddie Freeman, somehow all will be forgiven. I bet Peter Seidler doesn't want the Dodgers to get him. I think their motivation should not be the Dodgers, you know, being scared of the Dodgers getting him. Their motivation should be, look, we're trying to go all in to win a World Series, and Freddie Freeman is going to help us do that and really help us do that. And he's going to provide some power that, guess what, we didn't get. You know, we missed out on Nelson Cruz. He's going to help compensate for that. He's going to help compensate for those 20 home runs that they're probably going to miss from Fernando if he replicated like how he did last season. If he indeed misses the first half of the season, Freeman would help make up for those, as well as bounce back years from Grisham and Myers. That might help as well. And Kim, if he's actually jacked and he's actually like can hit fastballs and catch up to high velocity, that those all can fill in those gaps a little bit. But I don't think Seidler, of course, he doesn't want the Dodgers to get him, but that's not his main motivation if they indeed are really interested in Freddie, and we'll get to that. Another comment from Brian. Hosmer was never good in Kansas City, honestly. Got lucky in a World Series with that weak grounder he hit to score the winning run. He didn't hit the ground ball. He was on third with the ground ball to third base, and he ran home and slid home because David Wright didn't really look at him and threw it over to first to Lucas Duda, and then Lucas Duda had a high throw to home in Game 5 of that 2015 World Series. So he was running there. Those last 2 years in Kansas City were his prime years. He and Myers haven't done jack S. Myers has done more than Hosmer, But yeah, I agree. But Myers isn't as bad because he's making way less money than Hosmer is. Hosmer's 144 million. Myers was 83 million, I believe. Let's see here. Brian here, hit the like button, help this guy out. Yeah, definitely hit the like button, subscribe here. Again, I'm trying to go live every night that I'm available during this free agent frenzy and all of that. I post clips every day. Gaslampbell.com have articles there as well. So definitely, I appreciate the support. At Talking Friars on Twitter, on Instagram as well. Content there all day. Very active on Twitter, quote tweeting stuff, giving my thoughts there on reports, not just the Padres, but around the league. And then obviously our sponsor, GaglionBros.com, hit them up as well. Let's see here. Let's get to the next topic that I wanted to discuss. And that was, I believe, Peter Seidler's comments. Yeah, Peter Seidler's comments. He talked to the media today. He and Eric Grubner talked to the media today. And I did want to hit on one comment that Peter Seidler made that I'm a little bit frustrated with. And now, look, as a disclaimer, before I play the audio for you guys, I'm a huge fan of Peter Seidler, okay? Trying to get him on the show. Hopefully I can do that. And send emails to the Padres and say, get him on the Talking Friars podcast. I'd appreciate that. Trying to get him on. Hopefully that can happen. I absolutely love Peter Seidler. He spent $300 million on Manny. He spent $340 million on Fernando. He's looks like hopefully can extend Musgrove. You know, he's willing to, and now that he's interested in Freddie Freeman, supposedly, look, he is willing to spend money. You know, he's willing to eat some of that Hosmer salary, it seems like, if they can get some type of trade, a good trade where they don't have to give up top prospects. He wants to win. He knows that the fans want to win. So I'm all Peter Seidler, fan of him. But he did make a comment here today at spring training in Peoria on Tuesday here, March 15th, when I'm recording this, that kind of irked me about when he was asked how imperative it is for the San Diego Padres to make the playoffs this year. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here, and I will show you, and you'll hear the audio for the podcast audience that's listening. I appreciate you as always. Okay, here are the comments. This is Peter Seidler speaking, asked again how imperative it is for the Padres to make the playoffs this year, how imperative it is essentially for the Padres to win this year.
You know, got to win again. That said, as relates to this year and the future, that's history. It's not just, oh my goodness, we must win now. That's completely not my personal attitude and not the attitude of the organization.
All right. So for the podcast audience, if you didn't hear that, he said that the Padres are not in the, oh, we need to win right now kind of mode. They don't feel like that really big urgency like that. But he did say that obviously they're looking to contend for a World Series and said all the right things in that regard. But I didn't really like that he said, as a fan, a diehard fan, family has season tickets, invested in this team every single day. I didn't really like him saying that we don't feel like we're in the we have to win right now mode. Because to be quite honest, I disagree with that. I think they do have to win right now. Like, what's the point of having Manny Machado in his prime and spending money last year and trading for Snell and Darvish and giving Clevenger that extension so that he can pitch this year despite having Tommy John last year? What's the point that you had in acquiring Musgrove? What was the point? What's the point in being in on, Seiya Suzuki? What's the point in reportedly being in on Freddie Freeman? What's the point in all of that if you're not trying to win right now? What's the point of hiring Bob Melvin as the manager? A guy that has postseason experience and a guy who believes that the Padres should be winning right now. And that's why he took this manager job. Someone who won and made the playoffs consistently in Oakland with far less resources, far less fans in the stands. I just disagree with that sentiment that the Padres don't think they should be in this we should win right now mode. Because I think the players would say we are in the win right now mode. Now, I don't want to totally bash Mr. Seidler about this, because after that comment that I played there about that quote that he said, he did say, just to be fair, he did say that we are trying to win and they think that they're going to be able to put together a World Series caliber team, something like that. Something essentially, that's what he said. So they are trying to win, but he still said, I don't feel like we're in that win, we have to win right now mode. And that kind of irked me a little bit. Again, I don't want to overblow it, but I did want to mention that. That kind of irked me. Because I think with all the moves that they're making, hiring Bob Melvin and all that, and A.J. Preller making all of these moves, and he's been here for 7 years and they made the playoffs once, multiple rebuilds, and that one playoff appearance was in a shortened season. And in order to make the playoffs, or at least help his cause in making the playoffs, he gave up a lot of players that he ended up trading for in that first rebuild just to get Clevenger, who ended up getting hurt. So I think that right now it is win right now mode. They do have to make the playoffs this year, definitely. Especially with the expanded playoffs, there's no excuse. Even with Fernando hurt for the first half of the year, they have to make the playoffs. There's too much talent. You'd think that they'd sign, they have to. There's no other option. They're going to sign another power-hitting outfielder. They're going to sign someone. Whether it's Jock Peterson, a Michael Conforto, if they strike out in Suzuki or Bryant or Castellanos, or they don't get Freeman, which they're probably not going to, but we'll get to that later. They're going to sign someone, so I'm not worried about that. But with all the talent, Manny, Jake, Grisham, Myers seems like he's hopefully going to have a bounce-back year. Kim, jacked now. C.J. Abrams, top prospect. Potential of a 5-tool player when he keeps continuing to get stronger. Hopefully he's up at some point. There's a lot of talent still on this team. The pitching staff is stacked. They're the best rotation in baseball. You don't have an excuse. You do have to win right now. I'm not saying that you have to win a World Series this year. I do agree with Seidler if that's what he meant, if that's what Mr. Seidler meant when he said that we don't feel like we have to win right now mode, and he's talking about the World Series. Okay, I agree with that. But in terms of just winning in general and the playoffs, there's no excuse. You have to make the playoffs. I totally disagree if he just meant talking about the playoffs. Totally has to make the playoffs. There's no excuse. 7 teams in each league. 6 teams in each league, 12 playoff teams, 3 wild cards. Okay, so the Dodgers or us are probably the front runners to win the division. I'd give it to the Dodgers right now because that Fernando injury, man, that's crushing. And they still have Trey Turner at shortstop. They still have some options there. And it looks like Freeman probably odds-on favorite to go there. So I'm still having them right now with that Fernando injury. That's big. With Jerks and Profar as the left fielder right now. I mean, for freaking sake, holy cow. There's moves that need to be made. I'm not putting the Padres ahead of the Dodgers right now in the division. So let's say that happens. They're a wild card team. And they end up playing a 3-game series, even if it's against the Brewers, or let's say it's the Cardinals, or it's the Braves, and the Mets end up winning the East, and they play the Braves. You have to win that series still. You're telling me you're not going to be able to win that series with a 3-game series and your starters are Darvish, Snell, and Musgrove? Or depending on how Clevenger pitches, maybe it's Clevenger, Snell, Darvish, or if it's Musgrove, Clevenger, Snell, whatever. You're telling me you can't win that with Tatis back? Because he's not going to miss the whole year. And hopefully he stays healthy the rest of the year after this. If they have to DH him, then I guess you DH him. You need that bat in the lineup. But you're telling me that you cannot, that you're telling me that we don't feel like it's in we have to win right now mode. Like, come on. You do have to win. You do have to make it past the NLDS. I think, or excuse me, at least past the wild card. And I think, depending on the matchup, I mean, if they have to play the Dodgers, I mean, okay. I mean, I'd like it to go 5 games, and if they don't win, well, I wouldn't be terribly mad about that. But you definitely have to win the wild card series. You have to you have to win multiple games in the division series. You can't go 3 and out. I know there was injuries in 2020, but they still went 3 and out against the Dodgers in the NLDS. You got to win games. You just do. Musgrove does not have an extension right now. Snell and Darvish are free agents after next year. Like, this is the prime window. You got to win right now. So I disagree with Seidler's comments a little bit there, but I don't want to totally bash him because he did, obviously with the moves, the money that he spent, he obviously does want to win. But that specific comment irked me a little bit. That's all. Some additional things that he said. I'm talking about last year. If you're going to fall off a cliff, you might as well make it dramatic, and we did. Yeah, he's right about that. He said when asked if the Padres have a baseball budget this offseason, he said, we have a vision. Like the front office, him, Eric Hosmer, they have a vision. Well, whatever that vision is, guess what? That vision needs to come to fruition. See what I did right there? That vision needs to come through fruition right now. In the very near future. Because, like I just mentioned, all the resources that you're given, all of the money you're spending, this vision that Preller's had, he's made the playoff once. This is now his 7th season with the team. At some point, it can't just be about, we're attracting a lot of fans. Oh, we have a superstar. We have multiple superstars on the team. Oh, we have all-stars on the team. No, you got to start winning postseason games. You know? I like Preller, big fan of Preller, love his aggressiveness, love how hard he works. I mentioned that earlier in this episode. But you got to have some results here. That vision has to come to fruition right now. Even with Fernando hurt the first half of the year, they have a lot of talent on this team. They have multiple all-stars still on this team, in this lineup. And they're going to make moves to help this lineup. They have a great rotation. I'm pretty confident in their bullpen as well. Seidler mentioned it, and I've been saying this for weeks, months. He mentioned this earlier today, when speaking to the media. I don't see how these injuries happen twice in a year. It's like impossible. It's like a once-in-a-century thing. And I agree with him. And so if that does happen and there aren't really that much injuries, guess what? There's no excuse. You got to win. You have to win. So that was pretty much the Seidler comments. We'll get to the chat here. Let's get to the chat before I move on to the next subject here. Just seeing if you guys have anything to say about that Seidler. Gil, like your work, Ben. You keep it up. You keep it straight, facts, and have valid, rational arguments. I appreciate it. Look, I prepare here, diehard fan, I keep score of pretty much every game. I have my notebook here of all of notes that I take throughout the day, active on Twitter. I love this team, and I love communicating with you guys. And so, again, like this channel, like this episode, subscribe, put that push notifications on to the channel so you don't miss any video when I'm going live, when videos come out, Talking Friars on Instagram and Twitter. I feel like the fans need a lot of consistent Padres content, and I think I can relate to a lot of you guys because I'm really passionate about this team. Let's see. Festivus says this team needs to win 100 games this year. 100 is a lot. With Fernando out the first half of the year, I disagree with that. You win 100 games with Fernando out the first half of the season, my goodness. I mean, I guess if they get like Chris Bryant and Freddie Freeman, then you could make that argument. But like, even then, you still have to play the Dodgers a lot. You still have to play the Giants a lot, who are going to be competitive. For some reason, those Diamondback Rocky games seem to be competitive. So, and then those games against NL East teams, the Braves, the Mets, those are going to be tough, obviously. The Brewers series, they didn't fare well last year in. They have a great rotation as well, at least top end. They're top heavy there. So 100 games when you don't have your best player who arguably could have won MVP last year, I disagree that they need to win 100 games. Even with Fernando, upper 90s. Right now, probably 85 to 93 games is where I'd put it. Let's see here. Randall says, I do not want the Dodgers to win the World Series. Yep, obviously I agree with that. Clevenger was the best part of all the interviews released today. Yeah, he's a spark plug. He has energy. Freddie Freeman, we'll get to that, so I'll go past that comment about Freeman to San Diego. I hear the Yankees want Haas, Cobra says. That's false because they just got Anthony Rizzo. And they're a contending team as well. I think them getting Hosmer would set them back. Jerry says, I'm not happy with Preller trading off all those good Chihuahuas players. That needs to pay off soon or Preller is gone. Camposano is one of those AAA players. Seems like that development's helping. They hired Francisco Cervelli this past offseason. I'm sure a lot of you guys forgot about that. They hired him, and I think he's probably going to work a lot with Camposano, especially on defense. That was something that he struggled with. Look, a lot of the moves that he's made, some of them have not worked out. But when you make as many moves as Preller has made, a lot of these players are not homegrown, and I understand that. And if you look at the roster, a lot of guys aren't homegrown. Tatis technically is not homegrown. Machado's not homegrown. Hosmer's not homegrown. Jake's not homegrown. Grisham's not homegrown. Myers technically wasn't homegrown. Profar's not homegrown, even though he's with Preller with Texas, but he's not homegrown. Nola's not homegrown. Caratini's not homegrown. Musgrove's not homegrown. Darvish not homegrown. Snell not homegrown. Nick Martinez, if they get that done, not homegrown. Luis Garcia not homegrown. Robert Suarez not homegrown. Emilio Pagan not homegrown. Ha-Seong Kim developed really in Japan, not homegrown. So I just named off some of these guys. You could go a lot of these moves were additions. Some of them were good additions. Jake Cronenworth, Trent Grisham, Musgrove, they were great additions. I don't really miss Joey Lucchesi for that Musgrove deal, some of these deals were good additions, but some of them were not. Giving up on Trammell and Ty France, that one irks me. So I agree that some of these need to start paying off more than they are, but a lot of these AAA guys that you're referring to are the starters like Weathers, Paddock, and those guys. Those are like major league players. There's not a whole lot of pitching help in the minor leagues at El Paso starting-wise. Ray Kerr and Kevin Kopps, those seem like good additions to the minor league system. All right, let's get to the next topic here. Thank you, everyone in the chat. You can continue putting in your comments and all that. We'll definitely get back to that. Let's get to, let's get to some more comments. Bob Melvin spoke today. We'll get to Freddie Freeman in a little bit. Bob Melvin spoke to the media today about many topics. The DH, his expectations for Mike Clevenger, if C.J. Abrams will play second or shortstop majority of the time in spring, if he has any idea on who the closer is going to be. He had all of those questions asked to him, and he addressed them. And we're going to get to that audio right now. So let's start off. I'll share my screen here. And I'm not sure podcast-wise, if you're listening to this on replay, I'm not sure if you can hear this because I have my headphones in, because I think that's a better mic. But we'll see here. So if you can't hear him, I'll repeat what Bob Melvin essentially said. But for the YouTube audience watching here is what Bob Melvin said when he's asked about what the DH will look like for the Padres.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, I would have said a couple years ago that I like the different styles of play, but there's so much angst when your pitcher's up there and they're really not that many good hitting pitchers. You just worry about the injury component, whether it's swinging a bat, whether it's running, all those things. So I think it's kind of cool now, too, that the National League gets to see the DH. I was always a proponent of an interleague play that they should have flipped it, where in the American League ballparks, the pitcher should have hit, and in the National League ballparks, they get to see the DH, where, now the National League ballparks all get to see the DH.
So what do you do here? What's your? Are you going to cycle it? Would you rather have one guy or a lefty righty combination?
It just depends on what this roster looks like at the end. So, we've handled it differently in other places I've been. We've had, when I was in Oakland, Chris Davis was primary DH because of the numbers that he put up. Other years that, we split it up some. I think it just depends on what the roster looks like, once we start the regular season.
All right, fair enough there. That's fair enough. That's fair enough from Bob Melvin. In terms of the DH there, look, what do you expect him to say? Do you expect him to say, no, we'll put Jorge Alfaro there? No. He's going to, I think he knows that AJ is working his butt off and he's going to find a move. He's going to find a move that will allow him to have a better concrete idea of who that DH is going to be. I know they missed out on Cruz, and I was pissed off about that. You can go listen or watch that episode. But this DH option, it really does hinge on what AJ does. Does AJ go a little bit more of a rotational thing, bring in a platoon guy like Jock Peterson, or does he bring in someone like Jorge Soler? So here's now the next one on Bob Melvin talking about his expectations for Mike Clevinger. All right, that is great news right there about Mike Clevinger. I mean, if you're telling me that Clevinger, he's rearing to go, looks 100%, you're surprised how good he looks. I mean, Mike Clevenger's lining up as the fourth starter in this rotation right now. That's how stacked this rotation is. So if you're telling me that Clevenger's good, and hopefully you think that Darvish is good and Snell is good and Musgrove's good, health-wise is what I mean. I mean, that's a heck of a top four rotation. No one in baseball is going to beat that. And so you got to be really happy if you're a Padre fan like I am, hearing that. And obviously this, at the end of the day, doesn't really matter. What matters is what we see when Clevinger pitches in those spring training games and all that, the results. And then obviously into the season, and hopefully that arm holds up and all that. But in terms of just comments and what Bob's has seen, obviously we're not there. I mean, I don't think you can be happier about what we're hearing about Clevinger. So that's Clevinger. Next topic that Bob Melvin discussed. He was asked about C.J. Abrams and if he will play both second base and shortstop during spring training. Here is his response. All right, so Bob Melvin, again, for the podcast audience, says that CJ, because of Tatis's injury, lack of shortstop, it's You're probably going to see in most innings at shortstop. Again, early in spring training. I know it's only 18 games in 19 days, but Kim is probably going to play shortstop first few innings, and then they're going to let Abram ride for the last 6-7 innings, at least probably for this first few games. And obviously, if Kim, needs more at-bats against high velocity, they'll put him in there. But you can also get those at-bats in games, backfield games, with pitchers that don't get into those spring training games. Like an Adrian Morejon maybe, or Michelle Baez, someone like that. You can still get your at-bats there for Kim. I think the Padres really want to look at C.J. Abrams in these actual big league spring training games to see what they've got. And I think Preller's not going to be afraid to bring him up on opening day if he needs to. I don't think he will be up on opening day. The injury timeline definitely hurt him last year. That definitely pushed it back. But Abrams is an elite talent. There's no doubt about that. And so I like that Abrams is going to get a lot of reps at shortstop. I'm very, very excited in seeing CJ healthy for one, and then getting to see him play in spring training games eventually. So the next one now, we'll get to Chris Paddock. Bob Melvin was asked about Chris Paddock and fighting for the 5th rotation spot. You have 4 spots locked down, right? Clevenger, Musgrove, Darvish, Snell, probably in that reverse order. So those are 4 locked down. That 5th spot's open. Weathers, Morejon, Gore, really outside chance, Paddock. Who is going to get that spot? And so Bob talked to the media about that. Yeah, those comments that he made there, that's right. He's got to compete, and I think that's the right mindset to go into spring training. That nothing's given to you. You were on the team last year, but there's people that are coming for that same spot that you are. So there's no guarantee that you're going to earn that, but you're going to have to earn it. And so I think that sets a good example and definitely keeps Paddock hungry. Keeps Weathers hungry, keeps Morejon hungry. Those guys those are probably 3 main guys. Nick Martinez, if they get that deal done, those are the guys competing for that 5th spot, I'd assume. And so, yeah, Paddock, I think Paddock's the front runner. I know if they finalize this $20 million deal with Nick Martinez, it's like, okay, they gave all that money to him. He's going to be the guy. But it's going to be based on results, and I think Paddock does have the upper hand, to be quite honest. And I think his mentality, I talked with Kevin Acee about this a couple weeks ago on the podcast. You can watch or listen to that after this show, talking about Paddock's mentality, and we both agreed he should just go out there and say, I have nothing to lose. Didn't have a good year last year. I know things have been in my head. Forget about all that cowboy stuff and just go out, pitch. Don't care about, if you suck one day, just flush it and move on to the next inning, move on to the next pitch. And I think you'll see more success with that. Next, the final comment about that Bob Melvin made. He was asked if he has any idea who he'll use as the team's closer. And he had a response kind of like the DH response, which was expected. And before I play this, there's options. Drew Pomerantz, Emilio Pagan, Robert Suarez maybe, Luis Garcia. It's a similar situation, I think, as last year, where you had Melanson, you had Pomerantz, you had Keone Kela. Remember that? That feels like 100 years ago. One more guy I'm forgetting, Melanson, Pagan, Pomerantz, Kela. Those 4 guys, you had those 4 guys last year that were going to compete. And 3 of those guys were like, yeah, I'll take whatever role Jace Tingler gives me. Where Melanson was like, I want to go out and get this. So maybe there'll be a guy that takes on that role and takes on that mentality and is clear, like, dude, I want to go out and get this closer position, and really goes out and earns it like Melanson did. But this was Bob Melvin's answer, asked if he has any idea who he'll use as the team's closer. All right. So, yeah, Bob Melvin there for the podcast audience, just talking about it's going to take a while for that closer position to, solidify itself, have someone stand out. Now, AJ might make a move. Who knows? Kenley Jansen's still out there. I wouldn't do that. I think the bullpen should not be his priority right now. I think I'd just ride with that and maybe just, you can make additions if you need to. I like Kevin Kopps a lot. Had him on the show a few weeks back as well. You can go watch or listen to that. He talked about, and his goal is to impact the major league team this year. I think he can do that. Pitched in the SEC last year or a couple years ago. Golden Spikes Award winner, best conference college baseball in the country, high impact, high pressure situations that he's already pitched in college. Those situations are higher pressure than in the minor leagues in terms of fans and everyone there and people paying attention, to be quite honest, I feel like. Those games are broadcast on TV, on the SEC network sometimes. So he's faced that pressure. Ray Kerr's another guy. So I think it's the same thing as last year. This closer situation is going to determine, you're going to see who becomes the closer based on the results of spring training. Who shows that they want to go out and get it, Emmanuel, you guys said you can't hear. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. I thought you guys could hear. Okay, so I'll go over all the responses. Bob Melvin was asked about how he feels about using the DH. He said that it's kind of dependent on what AJ does, moves-wise. Does he bring in a DH, or it could be rotational? He had Chris Davis in Oakland, and so that kind of was easy hit for him. And in terms of Mike Clevinger, he really liked where Mike Clevinger is at, 100%. Feels better than ever. He was impressed with how much he's progressed, off that injury. CJ Abrams said that CJ's probably going to get bulk of the time at shortstop with that Tatis injury. And they really want to see him play in games. He's going to play in a lot of the games. When asked about Chris Paddock entering spring training with a chance to win a spot, he said yes, all the guys are going to battle, and he doesn't want Chris to feel like things are going to be handed to him. He wants him to come in with that bulldog mentality that I need to go earn this. And then finally about the closer, it's going to be like the DH. It's going to sort itself out like last year, closer as well. Look, the person that wants it is going to go win the job. Through their play, through their pitching, they're going to go win the job. It's as simple as that. So those are Bob Melvin's responses. I'm sorry that it seems like you could only hear the first one. Okay, so hopefully you heard that recap that I said about all of Bob Melvin's responses there. I apologize for that. But that was Bob Melvin's responses to the media. He said also that Tatis's motorcycle days are over and it was an experience to learn from. That's kind of like a no-duh thing. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have even been on the motorcycle in the first place. Again, I was pissed off last night. You can go look at that or listen to that, episode 125. We talked totally all about Tatis pretty much there. He said Clevenger's expected to be ready for opening day. Let's see, anything else he said? Darvish did throw on a mound today versus live hitters in the first throwing session at camp. Bob Scanlon said that Darvish has made mechanical changes to relieve stress in his back, which is what was that big injury to Darvish last year. His hip, his back, near the All-Star break. It seems like he was never the same. He was never the same. And so hopefully whatever he's changed, and maybe I'll do a breakdown of that in spring training when I first see him and kind of compare that to what he was doing last year. And maybe if I can spot things, slow-mo, any mechanical changes that he's made, we'll see. But that's definitely, if that's the case and he did make mechanical changes, and he'd know better than us. I'm not this big pitching guru. I'm a fan, a fanalist, as I've heard some people say. But hopefully that's what happened. Let's see here. Those are pretty much the big comments. So those are Bob Melvin's comments. We'll go to comments here. Erie. Let's see. I read an article saying that Kenley Jansen will not play for a rival. He doesn't want to do that to the Dodger fans, so I guess that's off the books. Yeah. Again, I know you're big on Jansen. On previous episodes, you've said that. I'm not that big on him. I don't think the bullpen is that big of a priority. I don't think it should be. We heard the Bo Mel interview, but not the other ones. Okay, yeah. Hopefully you're able to hear what I just said there about what Melvin said. Do you think with the 12-team playoffs is the reason why Freddie Freeman hasn't picked up immediately? It does change things a little bit. Not really, because Freddie Freeman is like a huge impact player. He's the best first baseman in the league. He might be a top 10 player in the league right now. You know, it would be hard for me to name 9 players that are better than him. And I don't have the stats here, but, I mean, I could just, go Trout, Ohtani, maybe Judge, healthy, Tatis, when healthy, maybe Acuna, Soto. I think Freeman's more consistent than Harper. I think Freddie Freeman is better than Machado. Arenado, definitely not. And I'm looking position players. I'm not counting pitchers. Pitchers don't count. Devers and Bogarts, no. Mookie Betts, okay, there's one I think I'd put in front of Freddie. But yeah, it's hard to find anyone that is, there's not many guys that's better than Freddie Freeman right now. So I don't think a team that's truly contending, like the Dodgers, like the Padres, a team like that, if they're all in on Freddie, or if they're even thinking about it, they're not saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't sign him because we can get in even if we don't sign him. Like, that's only teams that are on the fringe that probably wouldn't even have the chance of signing him anyway because they're not willing to give him 6 years, $150 million or whatever he wants. So $180 million or whatever it would be. So I don't think so. Vlad Jr. is another one. I would not do that yet. He's talented, but it's too early for me. You could say that same argument about Tatis, but Tatis does so many things, base running. He has the power that Vlad has, at least last year. Plays probably better defense a little bit. I know Tatis' defense last year at the beginning of the season was shaky, but he is better in that category. But Vlad is up there, but I'd still put Freeman in front of him. And speaking of Freeman, yes, his son Charlie would be very happy. His favorite player is Fernando. At the All-Star game, that picture went viral of that picture of Tatis and Charlie. And then during the season in Atlanta, Freddie had Tatis sign a jersey for his son, so that was cool. He would make Charlie happy, yeah. But I think Charlie's at the stage right now where, if Freeman went to the Dodgers, he'd still get to see Tatis then 19 times a year. So I know the schedule's probably changing next year where it's less divisional games because they're playing every team in the league. That's what the league wants now, I guess. But as for this year, you'd see him 19 times because I would think Tatis would still be with the team in some capacity. All right. Speaking of Freddie, Bob Nightingale came out with an article today saying that the Padres have entered the bidding for Freddie Freeman. And now this article, it's Bob Nightingale. I had a reaction video on YouTube that I had put out there on Instagram as well, Twitter, about right when I saw that report, and I prefaced it by saying, Bob Nightingale isn't the most reliable guy. He's been wrong on some things. And so I can understand why some fans would be like, Ben, don't even think about that. Don't even look into that. But he still is a reporter. He was at Padres camp today. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, I'll believe him a little bit in terms of them being interested. Kevin Acee came out with a piece later kind of saying they're not really into the bidding. They wouldn't put it, Padres sources wouldn't put it that much high in their level interest, but they're interested, but maybe not bidding. If it's into a bidding war, like Bob Nightingale said, it's not really that big. They're not really bidding for him. They're just interested. maybe if his market goes down. But I think, look, they're not getting him. I've said that, and I'm going to stick to that. I've said that the whole offseason. Fans have tried photoshopping Freddie in a Padres uniform, Padre hat. I don't see it happening. I don't see them moving that Hosmer contract because, rightfully so, I don't think they should be moving Hassel or Abrams just to get rid of a Hosmer contract. I just don't see Freddie coming here and then the Padres being willing to just say, hey, Hosmer, we'll have you DH and take up all these DH at-bats. Not to mention having Fernando come back, and who knows about his health in the second half of the year. And you have Hosmer just taking up all these DH at-bats. When, look, he's not the same power hitter that he was with Kansas City. How many home runs did he have last year? Like 15? And Freddie had doubles that. So I'm not saying Freddie's not going to – he wouldn't help the team. They'd have the best infield in the league when Tatis comes back. So I'd love it. I love Freddie, love his personality. It's not too big, just goes about his business, kind of like Will. Obviously a lot more talented, better player. MVP a couple years ago, defending World Series champion. But I just don't see this move happening. Like, I don't see them moving Hosmer. So if you're assuming that Hosmer's still on the books and they don't sign anyone else, it's just Freddie. They have a $210 million payroll right now about that, according to SpotTrack. And you add Freddie, that's $30 million a year. Your payroll's at $240. That's $10 million over the $230 million competitive balance tax threshold. And so now you're getting into the area where Seidler's going to have to pay 30% tax of how much he goes over. And that 240 number is before you even add the $5 million AAV of Nick Martinez, if it's the 4 years, $20 million, like reported before the lockout. That's before you add 15 to 20 or 12 to $15 million average annual value of a, say, Suzuki deal, or a $25 million average annual value of a Chris Bryant deal, or maybe like a $30 million AAV of a Castellanos deal. And so if they go into that water, then you're looking at a payroll that's 350, 360. And that's where it's like now you're paying even more in taxes. I don't know how much that means to Seidler. And if he really wants to just go all in, the Fernando injury obviously doesn't really help with that, wanting to do that. But again, he's out just the first half of the year. But it's not my money. Obviously, I just say, Peter, Mr. Seidler, just go spend it on Freeman, go spend it on Bryant, go spend it on Suzuki, go spend it on everyone. But we know that's not the way the world works. We know it's not the way that front offices work. They try to be as careful as possible with the money that they're spending on guys now. They want these shorter contracts, these smaller AAV contracts, unless you're a really, really special player like Fernando or Manny. So they're really careful with that. I just don't see payroll-wise, I just don't see that happening. So that's Freddie. Their motivation behind this is obviously the main one, think like probably driving up the price for the Dodgers, because the Dodgers seem like the main front runners on a Freddie Freeman deal. So that's obviously always that possibility, that they're just trying to raise the price there. But to be quite honest, if they're interested in Freddie Freeman, I feel like they're interested. There's so many moves. There's so many things that they need to upgrade. They don't have a left fielder right now. They don't really have a firm DH right now. They don't have a firm fourth outfielder right now. Profar's better utility-wise, playing first, second, left field sometimes, wherever. He's better utility-wise. He's not a starting left fielder. Jorge Alfaro is not a starting left fielder. They need more power in the lineup. So there's more moves. There's more time that Preller specifically and Josh Stein and the front office needs to be spending on and focusing on if they're truly not interested in Freddie Freeman. If they're truly not interested in Freddie Freeman, who cares what the Dodgers end up paying him, to be quite honest? Like, okay, if you're driving up the price and he still ends up going there, the Dodgers have the money to still keep spending. They're a big market team. They still have the money. They're going to continue to keep spending. So I don't see why focusing on just driving up the price for the Dodgers, what is that ultimately end goal? What does that really do? You know, it's not like it's the Kansas City Royals. It's a big market team. What does that really do at the end of things, making the Dodgers overpay for Freddie when you're just going to have to face him anyway, and then you wasted your time faking like you're interested in him when you could have been focusing on Chris Bryant or Seiya Suzuki or someone like that and filling your actual holes. So hopefully you get where I'm coming from with that. I just don't think it's smart to just be wasting your time right now on driving up the Dodgers price tag or whatever. But that's pretty much what Nightingale said. He said that the Padres franchise record, they're having 19,000 season ticket holders, my family being one of them. I don't know if he's counting 19,000 seats in the ballpark or 19,000 accounts, but that just shows the testament of us. That shows the testament of this wonderful fan base, and this fan base that I would not want to leave ever. You know, there was like a tweet that, if someone gave you $150 million, would you root for your rival? Like, no. That would be a lot of money. Great. But would I be happy? I'm happy with the Padres. I love the Padres. The Padres are a huge part of my life. And I'm proud of this fan base and this fan base's support of the team. And you saw it with the Fernando injury and how everyone was upset with him, how I was upset with him, how some of the group chat was upset with him, how a lot of people on Twitter were a little bit upset with him, even the people that weren't, and saying, this guy's young, just give him a break. But all of those passionate remarks and all of that, all of those people giving their opinions about it, if this team wasn't contending and weren't really showing that they wanted to win, I don't know if that many people would have expressed their opinion about it. But now that they're winning, now that they're showing that they really care about the city and they really want to win, this fan base supports. This fan base loves the Padres. And so that 19,000 season ticket number, franchise record, guess what? That's a testament, like Eric Hosmer said earlier today, that's a testament to this wonderful fan base and this fan base's support of this team. So anyone that you see on Twitter, Dodger fans or Dan Clark or whatever, anyone that's trying to bash the fan base and say that they're not loyal or the fan base is soft or they're too reactionary or whatever people say, don't buy into that stuff. Be yourself. Be us. We're unique. We're passionate. We're real Padres fans. You know, I'm on the East Coast right now. It's 12:28 a.m. Eastern time. And I've been on for an hour and a half talking to you guys. I love the Padres. And this is on a day they made 0 moves. And I'm just talking about stuff that happened at spring training. So this 19,000 mark is great for the Padres and money-wise and revenue, but it's a testament to us, the fans. The support, the loyalty, that's what it is. Festivus here. I was born in San Diego, and I've been going to games since the first season. Yeah, look, there you go. This fan base is loyal, so anyone that tries to tell you that they're not, they can screw off. Before we get into the Major League Baseball news of the day, I did want to get to something else Nightingale said, and something I teased in the ticker here for the YouTube audience, and something I teased in the title. And Nightingale said that Fernando Tatis Jr. is forbidden in riding motorcycles in his contract. But he still did it anyway? That's my takeaway. So Fernando is forbidden in riding motorcycles in his contract, but he still did it anyway? That makes me even more disappointed in him. It's like, come on, man. You're 22. I get it. You want to have fun. You want to be with your family and be in the Dominican and all that. You can do that without not following your contract and going against your contract. If this is true and you agree to not be on motorcycles and do these hazardous activities and you're still doing them, that's on you, man. That makes you look even worse in this. And that makes me really disappointed if that's really true. that you just didn't follow the rule even though you knew it was in your contract? Come on, dude. Going against the contract, that's a really bad look, man. That's a really bad look. And like I mentioned yesterday, big Tatis podcast, huge supporter, have his jersey, all that. Was at the 3-homer game that he had in 2021 against the Diamondbacks. Was at the game against Seattle at Petco where he had 2 home runs and he had a grand slam that totally opened the gates there. And that was like the real start of the swag chain, I believe. Was there for that. Huge fan of the guy. But if this is true and he went against his contract when he knew that he couldn't ride motorcycles, that's you putting yourself in front of the team, and that's not a good look when you're supposed to be that second leader on the team behind Manny. That's not a good look, Fernando. You got to be better than that. I don't want to harp on that too much, but I did need to mention that because I did see that in Nightingale's article, and that really made me more disappointed in Fernando if that's the case. So I did want to mention that. Before we get out of here, we'll get to the Major League Baseball moves that did happen today. After being acquired by the Braves yesterday on Monday, Matt Olson, probably before he even got on the field with the Braves, he signed a contract extension. Contract extension, 8 years, $168 million. This is like a contract that Freddie Freeman would have gotten if he were 27 years of age. But he's not. He's 5 years older than Matt Olson. And while I think, and I still hold this belief, that Freddie Freeman kind of got screwed by the Braves and the Braves should have went about it in a better way and let him know before the trade that, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. If you want to take our offer, we'll go with that instead of the trade. But if not, I understand. We appreciate what you've done for the franchise. We're going to go in a different direction. Now, Alex Anthopoulos, their GM, if anyone didn't see, he was highly emotional about Freddie Freeman and losing out on him. And he thinks, especially in these trades like this, it's a business. But, he won a World Series last year. He is the franchise, face of the franchise. Dansby Swanson was saying that his number should be retired and all of that. And he probably should, to be quite honest. And that would be like if the Padres win a World Series and Manny's at the end of his contract and they end up acquiring a younger third baseman, even though Manny could probably still play for a few more years in his prime, and they end up going a younger route, and they don't tell Manny that they're going in this direction. That's kind of like how that would be. I think it was a slap to the face for Freddie Freeman. And I'd be a little irked if I was Freddie, but it's a business. And Alex Anthopoulos, with that video that came out, speaking to reporters, he was crying, talking about it because he knew how much Freddie meant to the Braves organization. But at the same time, you can make the move, good for them. They locked down Matt Olson, one of the best first basemen in the league, all-star caliber player, great player. He's going to hit a lot of home runs for them. You can get that guy back and not bring back Freddie. That's one thing. But to do it in the way that they did, it felt like they lowballed him in offers before the lockout, after the lockout. This Dodger interest is totally picking up because it seems like Freddie's side sees that, look, the Braves aren't going to give me what I want, so I got to go somewhere else. So I'd be a little irked, that the Braves went with this when they could have maybe stuck it out a little bit longer, maybe another week, see what that brings. And then if they want to pull the trigger, they do it. Because, look, no other team was going to match that package. I was surprised that the A's didn't even get Kyle Wright, that young pitching prospect. But they did really good in this deal. Christian Pache is the real deal. Center fielder of the future probably for Oakland. And he was mad about leaving Atlanta. He was sad about that. He had posted a picture with Ronald Acuna Jr. in the Braves parking lot in spring training in Florida, I think the day before, about how happy he was to be with Acuna and all that, and now he's traded. That's the business, but it was a slap in the face if I was Freddie Freeman, the way that the Braves treated me. But in terms of the extension, 8 years, $168 million, Same amount of years as that Hosmer deal that the Padres gave Hosmer in 2018. And Olson's going to get $22 million each year the last 6 years of that contract. There's a club option for that year after those last 6 years, where he's earning $22 million a year. And it's kind of mind-boggling that Hos got the same amount of years that Olson did, despite hitting 14 less home runs the year before he got a contract, you know? So I think that's alarming. That's definitely alarming, and shows that that contract just really was not a good contract. But I'm not breaking news here, you know? I'm not breaking any news to you. You know that. I don't have to tell you that. But I did want to put that in perspective. Like, Olson had a great year, better year than Hosmer did. Way better. And he locked up an extension with still 2 years of control. That tells you how much they believe in him. And it was for the same amount of years, and it wasn't that much more money than Hosmer for a big market team, you know? So that just shows you how bad of a contract, how much of an overpay that the Padres gave Eric Hosmer. So I think that's all the topics. Covered Hosmer speaking, covered Seidler speaking, covered the Padres' interest in Freeman, maybe their interest or their motivations behind being interested. Tatis violating his contract. This has been episode 126, Talking Fires podcast, presented by Gaglione Bros, Cheesesteaks and Subs, GaglioneBros.com. Thank you, everyone, in this live chat. Again, this has been over an hour and a half, 12:37 a.m. on the East Coast here. Ben Fadden signing out here. I'll probably come back with something tomorrow. Probably not a live stream at night, maybe a live stream during the day if something happens. So stay tuned for that. But this is episode 126, Talking Fires podcast. Ben Fadden signing off. Everyone have a good night. Have a safe night. And again, thank you for supporting this channel. So hit the subscribe button. Have a good night. Go Padres. Until next